All right, so I'd like to call the school committee meeting to order at 6:05 p.m. this evening. And our first order of business is public comment. So as we say each time, public comment shall be for a period of 20 minutes. This generally allows time for about 6 or 7 people to speak. Any citizen wishing to speak before the committee shall identify themselves by name and street and shall speak for no longer than 3 minutes. All remarks will be addressed through the chair of the meeting. Public comment is not a discussion, debate, or dialogue between citizens and the committee, so committee members are not going to respond. We're just here to listen. Public comment is a citizen's opportunity to express their opinion on issues of school committee business. Written comments longer than 3 minutes may be presented to the committee before or after our meetings for the committee members to review and consider at an appropriate time. Remarks can be submitted to schoolcommittee@winchesterps.org. Ms. Bergstrom is going to be our timekeeper, and Ms. Bolognese has gathered the list. So, Ms. Bolognese, if you want to call our first public comment speaker up, that would be great.
Sure. First of all, we have Cheryl Timka. Ms. Cheryl Timka.
Good evening. I'm Cheryl Timko, 8 Black Horse Terrace. First, let me say I'm grateful to Dr. Hackett and the school committee members who have acknowledged the importance of the literacy curriculum topic. I'm encouraged by the fact that an assessment is underway. That said, I wanted to highlight tonight some concerns that I have, and I know others have as well. I sent these concerns to the school committee by email following our last meeting and have not received a response. Following our last meeting, I looked at the website for the Collaborative for Educational Services, CES, which has been selected to perform the assessment. My heart sunk to find that this group supports and actually sells training for reading recovery. For those that don't know, reading recovery is exactly the type of program that many of us are concerned about having in our schools. A program that involves cueing methods, and one that has been discredited by research. Further, a quick look at the social media accounts for those highlighted on CES's website suggests opposition of the statewide proposed legislation that would ensure all students receive evidence-based curriculum. My understanding was that this group was supposed to be independent, to help facilitate an unbiased approach to collecting data on the literacy programs currently in use at our schools and how parents and teachers feel about those programs. In fact, at the last meeting, Dr. Hackett even said, for me, it was important that we didn't have a literacy expert. And in the interest of trying to not be biased, we really felt it was important that the lead isn't in the field of literacy, but rather a professional researcher. Dr. Hackett, you have emphasized many times the importance of a clean, pure, and unbiased process so that people feel safe in sharing information. We couldn't agree more on the importance of transparency and independence in this process. And so you can imagine the disappointment and concern that this discovery had for me. I believe there should have been a more thorough, transparent, and community-involved process for selecting the firm performing the assessment, or at a minimum, further inquiry by the school committee on how that selection was performed. All that said, I want to clearly state that I do not expect perfection. My ask on behalf of this community is for honesty and transparency throughout this process. To that end, I would like to suggest the following moving forward. 1, more direct communication. Can we, the administration, the school committee, and the community, find a way to communicate and truly collaborate on this effort? Is there an alternative format to this meeting so that we can truly converse and have a more productive dialogue? And 2, parent and community involvement sooner rather than later. I would urge broader involvement of parents throughout the process, beyond just being a part of the design process, to instill and preserve a sense of trust in this process. Thank you for your consideration as we work together to make our schools the best they can be.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up is Ms. Kate Duncan.
Hi, my name is Kate Duncan, 60 Sunset Road.
I have a kindergartner in Morocco, and I have a preschooler who will be entering Morocco in about a year and a half. I feel incredibly lucky that my kids are so young right now, and this amazing group of parents has come before me to identify and raise the serious issue that literacy that's facing our district right now, so that hopefully the future children will not have to suffer the way that their children have. I also feel incredibly lucky that my daughter's kindergarten teacher is teaching her phonics and is not using units of study in her classroom. Our daughter is learning how to read. It is the best part of our night when we get to sit with her and watch her eagerly show us what she learned that day and how well she can sound out words. She truly is experiencing a joy of reading. I want all families to experience that joy that we feel. I want all children to experience that love of reading. And I know that is absolutely not the case right now due to the lack of evidence-based curriculum that we have in this district. While I am happy to hear, as Cheryl said, that this committee is taking up this issue and that we're looking for ways to address it, the current plan seems like it's going to take far too long. I have seen several of our neighboring districts see the data, identify the issue, and make needed changes to their curriculum in a fraction of the time. I have close friends who are educators and literacy specialists in neighboring towns. They were able to remove units of study and implement research-based, high-quality instructional materials in 2022 after just identifying the issue in the fall of 2021. They were not willing to let entire classes of children suffer while they waited to change. My question is, how many classes of children are we willing to let suffer while we wait to make needed changes? Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up is Ms. Nora Cooney. Yes.
Hi, I'm Nora Cooney. I'm at 10 Oneida Road in Winchester. And for the school committee and Dr. Hackett, I'm somewhat reiterating the email I already sent you, so don't worry, it will not be the novel that I regularly send you guys when I'm thinking late at night. And I appreciate your response, Mr. Hopcroft. And I would love to meet and discuss further, but I also think it's really important to publicly discuss as well and to make sure we're talking about this stuff and everyone knows what we're thinking about. And so to that end, when I wasn't able to be at the meeting on February 27th, unfortunately, but when I watched it back, one thing that I was disappointed at, as I mentioned, which is I wanted more of an understanding of how things work at the district level in terms of how decisions are made. I totally understand that we might not know what's going on in every classroom and that was what the process is trying to figure out, and I respect that. I definitely want to know what our teachers are thinking. I love that we're going through this process. But there are some answers we could have right now that I really think is just important so we all understand with this standard-based model how decisions are made. I assume a teacher can't just use district funds to purchase whatever curriculum they want. I assume that there's some decisions being made at a district level on how we're using those funds and what we're putting them to. And my question is, how does that happen? We just want to understand who determines what is best practice in our district. Who determined that units of study was still going to be on the listed accepted, best practice curriculum list for all the grades, which it still is. So regardless of whether a teacher's using it, as a district, we are still endorsing it. And I just want to have a better understanding of how that happens. Are teachers consulted? Is it a committee of teachers? Is it a district leader? I just think we need to have more transparency around how this process works so we can understand it, and specifically how district funds are used. So for example, we got U-Fly in every classroom. That's great. But if a teacher hasn't really been given the resources and professional development to implement it, I can't imagine if I was a teacher who's been doing balanced literacy and all of a sudden you get this new stuff and I don't know what I'm doing, that's stressful. I wouldn't want to buy into that either. So as we're getting their feedback on all this, I think it's important we understand what resources they've been given to date before this process. So for example, what money has been spent on a district-wide level to help roll out U-Fly? What exactly have they gotten from a PD standpoint? Was it district-wide? Was it left to individual teachers? Are they doing it on the side? How exactly is this being done and what district funds are behind it? Because if we don't understand that, any information and data that we're getting through this process isn't really full information. Because if you've been trained your whole life in one model and there's this sea change, getting buy-in for that also requires really educating and helping them learn and not having them have to do it on their own or spend their own money to get that training. And I think we have to understand what the district's already done to have a full understanding of if the data we're getting back is really something we can trust in terms of what they want and what they want to see. And to that end, about that data, I just want to, again, reiterate, I love that you want to follow the data, but I think what's been frustrating for me and other parents is we have all this talk about data. We don't hear a lot of discussion of all the data that's already out there that has made so many of us nervous to begin with. And I think just addressing that data and not looking at our school in a vacuum would be really helpful in looking at what's to come. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Last speaker is Ms. Hillary Eaton.
Hi again, I'm Hillary Eaton, 5 Dean Road, first grader at Morocco and preschooler at Vincent Owen. So maybe building on some of the previous comments that I found intriguing, last school committee meeting was my first exposure to the process here. And not as an aside to literacy, but I find process and sort of like intent versus execution is often a really interesting topic, like best of intentions, and then by the time you get through the layers of bureaucracy and 10 years of whatever, it kind of, like the original intention gets lost, right? There were a lot of things that got said last time around that, like, on the surface really resonated and sounded pretty upfront. But like the more that you go back and rewatch it or look at sort of data that was shared or wasn't shared, the more that there's like a bunch of like really interesting sort of paradoxes or mismatches, right? And one thing that I would love, again, building on comments, is to get a better idea of how we're constructing a process that repairs trust. Because there was a lot of talk of that, which sounds great. There wasn't necessarily a lot of constructive, and here's how we're going to change the way we do things to inspire more of that trust. There was like brief mention of maybe some anonymity around sort of like surveys that would be given to parents and teachers to sort of protect stuff like that. But there was no real sort of setup for how people were going to get chosen for the in-person committees and how they would be able to feel safe, or why people might not feel safe around that process, right? There was a lot of talk about choosing a research companion that would be unbiased and not even know about literacy, which seems a little backwards. And then it turns out when people just do surface level research on social media, they can figure out sort of that's not really an accurate statement at all. Just those kinds of things, they build up, and those are some of the things that probably lead to a feeling that sort of like the sort of like actions don't match words, right? So just, in this stilted format we have, where we get to like sort of talk at you but have no opportunity to talk with you short of going to other things like the parent committee meetings, et cetera, how can you have a back and forth that is not sort of like defensive and confrontational but is productive and works to build trust when you have a format like this where it's like 20 minutes at the beginning and then no opportunity at the end to react, no opportunity to ask questions, emails get sent in. There's probably not the bandwidth to always answer them or to give them the justice, but that sort of like group back and forth discussion, like what's the plan for the committee to do something around that would be like what I would love to hear personally. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The last one? You good? All right. All right, so we'll close public comment. I do want to just reflect that I understand that the format of public comment in public meetings like this is very, very frustrating. These are business meetings of the school committee that have an opportunity to hear from the public. They're not sort of back and forth type meetings, and we've tried to get out to all the parent associations and meet individually with a lot of folks. But I hear the frustration, and continuing to look at communications and forums to where that would fit into the agenda makes some sense. And drifting into actually responding, which I don't mean to be doing, because that's not what we're supposed to be doing here. But all right. But thank you all for coming, and thank you for sharing your input. And if people didn't have an opportunity to speak, you can send an email to us with additional thoughts and concerns at the email address I mentioned before, which I think is schoolcommittee@winchesterps.org. All right. So next item of business is superintendent remarks.
You going to start with me?
Yeah.
All right. That's okay.
Either way.
All right. I'm ready. So good evening, everybody. Good to see you. And just have a few things, and I'm going to ask a couple people to kind of actually step in for some of these remarks. Wanted to start with first a congratulations to the boys varsity hockey team, who had an outstanding season. Played their hearts out on Sunday night in not an easy venue. We're as watching the game and going to the game and just seeing the intensity of the game, certainly, we were as good a team and certainly as well coached as the team we were up against. And and it didn't end the way that we hoped it would end. And I just wanted to say that, as a superintendent, in talking to many of you and others, we could not be more proud of the kids, of the boys, and how they conducted themselves after that game was over. I have been around for a while, athletics for a while, I've been around high school teams for a while, and I've been around hockey. And that was exceptional. And it's not the rule, because, and I could have understood any other reaction but the one that our kids displayed. I mean, they were just a class act. They didn't argue. They were gentlemen to a person. The coach and his comments and his conduct, we just have a lot to be proud of as a school community. And we're grateful for, them and the great season they had and just how well they represented, I think, some of the, if not the most important characteristics that we hope our athletic programs and all of our programs produce in our kids, right? So, I just want to make that comment public. Having said that, I think, certainly there's some interest in having at some point or just understanding where the MIA goes with how decisions around or how calls are made in crucial and critical games, and I say that knowing that the MIAA is also interested in that conversation. So, I will, I've talked already to Mr. Rhea, the athletic director, and we'll be following up with a few other people. We're here to celebrate the boys. We're here to and just praise how well they behave, but I think we have an obligation too to make sure that as we go down the road and can separate ourselves a little bit from the heat of 2 nights ago, that we pay attention to, the rules that for not just hockey, but I think across the board, but more importantly, just that we're advocating for our kids because we don't want our kids in that situation. We don't want any kids in that situation, not just kids from Winchester. So I just wanted to kind of lead with that, and I know that Mr. Dixon's been a little bit active with it. He and I have had a few conversations and sat together at the game along with Ms. Bolanese. So we, saw some of it firsthand, and, we'll be working with Mr. Nixon and Mr. Rhea, and I don't know if you have any comments that you want to make just in general terms.
So in the spirit of keeping things positive, I just want to say that as we sometimes see when we pack the auditorium at Winchester High School with concerts, at the high school level, one of the things I love is I see elementary teachers of our high school kids come to cheer them on and celebrate their accomplishment. Frank and Karen and I saw that Sunday. Students at high school, middle school, elementary. I saw elementary teachers, principals. I saw retired teachers there to cheer on some kid they taught, in 3rd grade. It was...
Teachers coming straight from Hello Dolly.
That was, yeah, I mean, that something really incredible happened at the Garden. As well as at the end of the game, which we will continue to talk about, but both teams played like champions, and very, very proud of how our boys played, and certainly compliment St. John's Prep. This isn't the first time they've taken a title, and they deserve to be wearing white jerseys that night. It's the home team, so thrilling game. I could go on and on about how awesome our penalty kill was and many other attributes that I won't, but I was on the edge of my seat. It was terrific. It was great. So very, very proud of them, proud of the coach. Echo what the superintendent said. Their conduct after the game has not gone unnoticed, well outside Winchester. So kudos to them.
With that, have a couple school project updates. First one I just want to give is, that there's been conversation around Mystic and the replacement of the HVAC system at the town level. As you know, Mystic is our building, but we don't use it for school purposes. It is rented or leased to Kids Corner, which is after school program, and then also to WinRec, the town recreation department. So there was some energy and conversation around trying to get to a HVAC replacement. and it's kind of, we've gone through the process, or the town's gone through the process and has kept us informed. The preliminary thoughts or estimates around what that might cost went from a little over $1 million or $1.5 million to significantly more, as these projects sometimes do. So at this point, I have not, and I do not have any additional information about where it is in terms of doing an actual engineering study. I know that that was a discussion. Andrew Marin went over and met with town management and DPW, P. Lawson specifically, and there was discussion there about kind of what is the scope. I'm sure there'll be more information coming, but I just wanted to give you an update. It does not appear, it's apparent that there won't be any full-scale work done this summer as part of any kind of project, but as we find out more and know more, we'll keep you posted. Additionally, I would just ask that Mr. Nixon talk a little bit about some of the other projects. We can call up a memo that he did provide as part of your packet. And just also to let you know that the FPVC did vote at their last meeting to support an article to update the master facilities plan. And Mr. Nixon may be able to talk a little bit more detail about that, but it is time for the master facilities plan to be updated. And specifically for us, it's important because this committee has made a commitment to submit a statement of interest for a new Morocco elementary school to the MSBA pretty much this time next year. So the master facilities plan, which will include an updated and more comprehensive enrollment projection, is a really crucial part of that process. So with that, Mr. Nixon, if you would.
Sure, happy to. Good evening. So this actually starts off with a project we haven't talked about in a while, but we sure pushed hard for it. So not technically an EFPBC project, but a school committee priority. We took us, I think, 5 years to get funding for the restoration of the masonry at the historic McCall facade. That's a 1932 building. So this is not really a detailed presentation on that, but rather just a couple of images to highlight the progress that's been made. You may have seen some of the equipment in and out of the front of the school off of Main Street. So most of the brick and the precast masonry and the efflorescence has been addressed, including some of the decorative work up top. And the project, hopefully you can see that okay. One of the problems we had that sort of the root cause of some of the deterioration was some of the concrete flat work had settled. So we actually had water that was sort of ponding against the building and against the beautiful areaway. That's also being replaced. When the building was originally built in 1932, it was a smaller building, and we had fewer kids. And that's sort of true for most of our buildings here in Winchester. When the building was originally built, we did not have concrete that just went right up to these structures. That decision was made many years ago. Somebody realized we have too many feet on the ground, the grass isn't growing, let's just pour concrete, and the consequence of that was a lot of freeze thaw and deterioration. So this just gives you an idea about, we did a lot of demolition, put in some new brushed concrete, and then tied that in to drain towards Main Street. This is a better image, though, of that areaway I described. It runs across the whole front of the building. So this was actually really becoming a safety issue. The valves, you're looking at the replacement. These were custom precast, I think actually outside of Massachusetts over the winter. They were tinted to match the building. I think they look great. And this actually meets code. We couldn't build it the way it was built originally to meet code today. And it's an important safety element as well, because that goes down the whole story. So anyway, making great progress. What remains is obviously to finish this work, and there's some work on the coping, that sort of that curved precast element above the main entrance to the auditorium. And as you can see in the image on the left, we still have some concrete work to do. So anyway, it's exciting to see the pieces and parts coming together. This was a project that was ultimately recommended by the Capital Planning Committee to the town manager. It was funded by town meeting. We sought $825,000. It came in substantially under budget. So that's good news. Money not spent goes back to the general fund and then a reversion for other town and school projects.
Mr. Nixon, can I ask a quick question? Can I ask you a quick question about it?
Sure, only if I know the answer.
It's not a trick one, I swear. Did we know how long that repair work is estimated to last? Is this like, I know there's been a lot of talk at capital planning about renewal and making sure that we have that on a system to maintain. Is this going to be easier to maintain? Is there something that we know we're going to have to do this every 20 years?
So what's great about this project, Ms. Bergstrom, is that it's really, well, first of all, there is repair work in the facade itself. So here's an
Right.
example of that. So we would expect that that's going to last at least 20 or 30 years.
Okay.
We hope much longer.
Yeah.
Obviously, we're not in a position to tear the exterior wall apart if we have water penetration elsewhere in the building, but our consultant did a good job. I mean, the water comes from somewhere, starts with the clouds, and then it hits the building. And so we found damaged gutters, we found damaged step flashings. Some of the lead-coated copper flashings on this building are original to 1932. So they actually did a lot of work up top
Okay.
that you can't see from the
Right.
sidewalk to try to mitigate that. So we do not see this as a short-term fix, but a
Yeah.
long-lasting repair. The work, though, that you see off the sidewalk, this isn't really repair. This is just complete reconstruction. So these are brand-new precast elements. And in fact, we know so much more about and have so much more control over concrete and masonry technology today than we did years ago. A perfect example is Winchester High School. Look at remember some of the deterioration we're dealing with and decisions made in the 1960s and 70s. So we see this to last generations. Yeah, so I hope that answers your
Perfect, thank you.
question. On Lynch, I know I had a video for you last time. No video for you today, but just keep watching the website. This is a progress plan that we just got last week. This reflects the concrete footings that are already in place in blue. The green is the formwork and pending concrete, and then the light blue sort of cyan wall you see. By the way, that cyan line is facing the Lynch field, so north is generally up. These are foundation walls that have already been cast. As I think I described to you previously, the Lynch project is broken into sections, section A, B, C, A being by Horn Pond Brook. So Horn Pond Brook to the right, that's our vehicular bridge that we have today. That's A, then the middle of the building is B, towards Pond Street is C. So Brate Builders is working from A, B, C with their concrete foundations and foundation walls, and then they're going to start to erect steel and go B, C, A. So they're going one way, they turn around, and they're moving back. What's really exciting is we expect steel to start arriving on site in the next 10 to 12 days, and we may actually see columns going up in mid-May. You're going to see, or excuse me, early May, we may be actually topping out a section of the building by the end of May or early June, which is really exciting. So if you think it's going fast now, it's going to blow your mind soon. So it's very exciting. And the weather continues to be extremely helpful for all the progress. It's just better weather than anybody could have dreamt for. On the high school gym project, as I think you guys are aware, the select board did vote, I think last month, to support the actual sort of development of a bid package for the reconfiguration and the reflooring. We've talked about that before, and also the construction. So what the board voted was to take $1.3 million in ARPA funds to put towards the project. To remind the committee, we were at $2.43 million in August. That's project costs, not construction costs. So there were contingencies in that number and 6 months of escalation. We had no expectation in August. We were really going to be bidding it in 6 months, but we wanted to put something in there and just kind of advertise to the town, if you were to bid it in 6 months, we think you could do it at 2.43. Given that, given where we are on the calendar, recommendation from town manager was internally, let's round that up, call it 2.6. I think that's a really good idea. And so that's what the board is working on. So what they have done is they've actually encumbered half that out of ARPA funds to put towards the project. Additionally, and in the same meeting, they also voted to take $100,000 out of ARPA to fund the development of a bid document set to really get this going. I think that was really smart on the board's part because, as you know, you can't spend the money until it's been allocated. We typically would be going to town meeting for funds, but the board is in a unique position with the town manager because they really have control over ARPA money. So they made that decision. So engineering and planning has already written the RFP. It has been advertised. We're really clear about what we're expecting this new gymnasium to do. That is to accommodate basketball, volleyball, wrestling, and albeit not regulation, an indoor track. So we're excited that that's advertised and we should be getting proposals soon. The board is going to, I shall scroll down a little bit further here. So the board is going to go to town meeting. Again, they don't need town meeting approval for the ARPA money, but to cover the gap, they're seeking $960,000 out of the overlay fund. So that's from our Board of Assessors. And then that smaller gap will be covered by free cash. The EFPBC has joined the board in co-sponsoring the article. So this is the language the board has voted. deadline for motion language is, I think, April 1st, so I don't think the board has yet voted motion language, but I or Dr. Hackett or Andrew will share that with you guys by email when that happens. So any questions? Should I stop for questions there, or you want me to keep going? Okay. And we've talked about that before. I think you guys are generally familiar. So with respect to the master plan update, as Dr. Hackett mentioned, the EFPBC did vote back on the 11th to place an article on the warrant for funding. So we last funded the master plan in 2014 and 2015. That plan was about 90% complete in the spring of 17 when we submitted the SOI for both Lynch and Morocco. It wasn't finished, but it was close. And we let the MSBA know we were in the final laps. We completed that in the summer of 17. We sent it to the MSBA. They said thank you. They definitely read it. We got questions from them. And it was actually in the fall of 17 that we separately brought in the UMass Donahue Institute for that kind of second, third party look at the enrollment projections with a completely different methodology. That work back in 14 and 15, the reason we funded it twice, we originally expected we would need about $80,000. We got some pushback from some other boards in town, felt like that might be a little rich. So we actually got, and I don't know if Ms. Bergstrom remembers the exact number, we requested $40,000 or $45,000 initially. And we actually got no bids, but we got a lot of response from architects who said, that's nowhere near enough. You need more, about $80,000. So we came back the second time, came back to the well, and between those two funding authorizations, we came up with about $85,000. That was in 2015. Costs clearly are higher today. So the EFPBC voted last night in support of this article, a motion to seek $145,000. That hopefully is a little conservative. That might go just like the McCall masonry restoration. So if we don't spend that money goes right back. We wanted to have adequate funds for another deep dive with a 5 and 10 year demographic and enrollment study. Hopefully with a group like UMass Donahue, if that should work out, and still have adequate money on the table for the architectural master planning piece. And as Dr. Hackett was just saying, I want to underscore this, the timing of this is super important for spring town meeting so that we can get started on this work over the summer. The results of this master plan will really help us make the case to the MSBA when we're submitting a statement of interest for a new Morocco. The MSBA has long sort of seen Winchester as sort of thoughtful and planful in this way. We are somewhat unique. There are not many districts who are so consistent about doing a 10-year facilities master plan, and we do it, and it has really served us well. So that was the motion from the EFPBC, and that was just shared with management today. And then I guess closing out, as Dr. Hackett was mentioning, I have a brief summary for you here on the Mystic School. I don't know that we've actually seen like an actual document in terms of an estimate for $1.5 million. I think that might have been just sort of an inside baseball number that was being kicked around between management and DPW. But now that the number has come in much higher, my suggestion to the committee, and I couldn't resist grabbing the original floor plan from 1923 to share with you, is that I see Mystic a lot like I see Morocco. So think about 4 years ago when we talked about Morocco and we unanimously supported what we call the Morocco Life Extension Plan. We did not put a brand new roof over all of Morocco. We re-roofed a portion of it. We did repair work. We did not replace the entire electrical system at Morocco. We replaced those components that were necessary so we could feel confident we could stretch that building out until 2020 to 2030. And the same is true for the heating system. We budgeted $3.6 million for that work. We are substantially under budget. Today, with all that work done, we are hundreds of thousands of dollars under budget. So while it's unfortunate to hear that these initial costs are coming in high on Mystic, it's not clear to me, and I think it's not yet clear to the superintendent, sort of what scope that really responds to. If a comprehensive electrification of Mystic, and I'm throwing a number because I haven't seen it, if it's a $4 or $5 million project, that's helpful as a reference point. I think we need to get through our master plan to give this committee some guidance about what the future of Mystic is. I'm not convinced that building is standing in 20 years. Our current master plan says you don't need it right now, but don't get rid of it because you might need it in a decade. And so now it's time to study that again. if we have more of a short-term interest in Mystic, I would argue to this committee, we should be having a conversation with engineering and planning and management about what smaller scale investments are necessary because our kids need reliable heat, reliable controls in that building. And not just for next year, but for some number of years until we can really consider the ultimate disposition of that building. And if you can't see, the point I'm making to the committee is, we can make changes at Mystic and still do good. We used to heat the building with coal. That room used to be filled with coal. And although we don't use coal today, even today, a high-efficiency modular gas-fired boiler would be a more efficient solution than what we have. Not saying we should go that way, but I think we can make some smart decisions with respect to our climate action plan and also sensitive towards our utility bills. A lot of the windows at Mystic are original to the addition, so that's 1940s, single pane glazing. We have tax dollars metaphorically going out the window. Sometimes they do when the windows are open, when they can't control the heat. So anyway, that's a mouthful, but that's kind of where we are. And I think I'm certainly interested in learning more about what Mr. Marin, has heard and suggestions from you, Dr. Hackett, about kind of how we engage next steps on Mystic. We've talked publicly, right? We're in the midst of lease negotiations with a tenant there as well, so we need to be sensitive about that.
So is this an item that we would add to our agenda at a future
Yeah,
meeting
that's
then
fine.
for this discussion?
Yep.
Okay. I will make sure we add it under I'll make sure we add it under future agenda items, Mr. Nixon. I think that's a good idea.
Yep.
Before you finish your comments, Dr. Hackett,
Yeah.
I had a couple updates that were related to buildings, so I thought this might be a better time.
Yeah, we have to go back to
Yeah.
a slide too.
Did you have other things to do first?
Just on the communication.
Okay. Do you want to do that first, or do you want?
Sure.
Or this?
Andrew, can you go to slide 5, please? Neglected to say, during the communications portion, we are having a groundbreaking ceremony for Lynch School this Friday at 2:30. This message tries to manage expectations. There will not be food, there won't be any chairs, there are no fireworks.
No champagne.
No, never. And the site is, you can imagine, in a little bit of a state of disrepair. So we don't want you coming there and expecting it to be looking good. We want people to come. It is open to the public, but just please understand that you could be standing. We're trying to keep the program relatively short, but there will be so-called dignitaries from a couple of different places who will speak. The Massachusetts School Building Authority will be represented there too, which is fantastic that they're willing to come out and help us celebrate this. And I also mentioned in this announcement that, don't forget, there are a couple other opportunities. One will be a topping off ceremony, which is when they place the last piece of steel. We're hoping that we can get that last piece of steel over to Parkhurst School and have kids actually sign it before it's actually placed, which would be a huge deal. And then if we can time it up so that we can actually do it publicly and in a good time for everybody to actually see it actually placed, that's the goal. And then there will be the ribbon cutting ceremony. I've been in different places with ribbon cutting. Sometimes it's done kind of a little bit after the school opens, so everyone can just settle in. And people aren't, teachers aren't losing their minds trying to get into their classrooms and get stuff set up, because there's a lot to do, obviously, with moving everybody, again, from Parkhurst to Lynch. But that will be very public, and that will be much more accommodating for the public. So didn't want to not mention that. There's a RSVP link for the groundbreaking. Currently, last time we looked, we have 40-ish people who have indicated that they are planning to come. So if you haven't signed up and you want to be there, this was sent out through Parent Square. You should have a copy. If you don't, just contact Erin Allen in my office, and she can get you a copy so that you can. So everybody's welcome.
Where should people plan on parking?
So, Mr. Brady, that's a good question.
Your house.
Part of
carpool.
part of not overselling this, it's going to be on the Horn Pond Brook Road, so it will be parking in the neighborhood essentially, because they can't drive on site. So for those that are familiar, the bridge, the existing kind of bridge or road that goes from that side of the school site into the site itself will be pretty much where people will be standing. We'll be utilizing that. And then going as far in the site as we can, construction will be shut down, so it will not require hard hats or anything like that, but, yeah, so.
So mud season boots?
You know what, you ought to dress for the season. I would suggest layers, and who knows, it could rain, so.
And no kids, right? This isn't intended to be a family event?
It's not intended to be a family event, but if there are children who would like to be there, I wouldn't discourage
Okay.
it. Just
It's
I would
okay for-
encourage parents to hold on tightly.
So I would say a couple things. One, my son is going to be in school at 2:30, so don't leave school for this. But for those who aren't familiar with the neighborhood on the Horn Pond Brook Parkway side, there is the Horn Pond Brook Pathway, and so it's a very quick walk or bike ride from the center of town. So you can come here on foot and by bicycle. Also, I don't want to inconvenience the neighbors with parking in the neighborhood, but if you've ever dropped off your kid at Lynch, that whole neighborhood has, there's some parking there. That was one of the things I wanted to mention but there are probably more convenient opportunities. If you came to the ribbon cutting ceremony, I imagine, Mr. Nixon, the parking lots would be in by then.
They will be.
And
Or I see nowhere
Why would
near
you
the
ask
project.
and so there are a couple other opportunities to come celebrate the opening of the new building that might be better if you don't want to get your feet muddy in the process. So that was one of the things I wanted to mention, is make sure that we covered the Lynch. And I also want to just follow up on what Mr. Nixon was saying about the Mystic School, because I think the notion of it's the facilities master plan, is our intended, medium-term use of that building. What is it? If it's a short term, then doing the life extension on the building to keep the heat on and stuff makes sense. If we think there's a long term, which obviously there'd be some engineering and things to figure out what that would cost, then there might be different decisions that are made. And I think in either case, we probably want to evaluate all of our choices, electric as well as, in the short term, it might not be electric, but in the long term, hopefully it would be. But we'd evaluate all of that when the time comes. I also neglected to mention at the beginning of the meeting that Mr. Nixon has a commitment and will have to leave at some point, but we'll be dialing in. And so if he gets up, don't think he just got upset with the conversation. He has somewhere he needs to be. Back to you. 'Cause I think you
And
have
additionally,
more.
we got so excited about going into the school project conversation that we skipped over our student representative remarks, if there are any. And I'm going to say it, I'm not going to say it again. I think that probably someone will reach out and just, the student representative remarks, we skipped over it, so we wanted to make sure we come back to you.
I did want to just reiterate what Mr. Nixon said. I thought the turnout for walking was awesome. It was nice to see all the admin and all the teachers there. Makes this town feel like much more like a community, so that was nice. The one thing I did want to plug was that Winchester Student Council will be partnering with the Jimmy Fund this Saturday to host our annual Putting for Patients event at the high school. It's from 11 to 2. All the proceeds will go to funding for research for pediatric cancer. So it's going to be a great event if you could bring your kids. It's really fun. We have a mini golf course set up in the gym, so it'll be fun. So I hope that we can see people there. There will be more information on either the Winchester Student Council Instagram as well as the high school morning announcements.
Terrific. Thank you.
Can you remind us what's the Instagram handle for the student council?
I do. It's just at Winchester Stuco,
Oh,
I believe. Yes.
okay, thank you.
Yes.
And I'll say, we didn't forget you. I was actually going in the order of superintendent chair, student remarks.
No, I
So,
figured I knew
you weren't
I
forgotten.
No worries.
But I didn't think the superintendent was.
I got carried away with my
I-
remarks.
I
It's on me.
I snuck my remarks in there, but
worries.
I think you have more remarks.
I do not.
Oh,
I think I saw Karen's hand, though, Tom.
Karen, go ahead.
Go.
Oh, okay. So just on the high school, as we were saying, I was able to go to the hockey game as well. The state championships were amazing. I was also able to make it to the high school's Hello Dolly performance this last weekend. That was amazing from the point of the cast, the stage team, the tech, the lighting, the sound, choreography. It was just an amazing experience to see. And then I'd also just like to acknowledge, I saw that several of our high school students were honored for their National History Day projects. 3 honorable mentions, 7 bronze and silver medals. And then we also have 3 students who are going to the All-State Music Festival this weekend for band and chorus and orchestra. And it's going to be at the Boston Symphony Hall. So another great venue. So, and I just want to acknowledge our stellar students, and they're just stellar in so many ways, from performing arts, academics, athletics, as Dr. Hackett was saying, just a class act after the game on Sunday. And I'm just always impressed with our students as they come up through the school system, just to see how their passions unfold over the years and how they develop. It's just really exciting and beautiful to see. So, kudos to all the kids.
Thank you, Ms. Bolanese.
Nicely said.
Mr. Beatty.
Just building on that, I also wanted to acknowledge we had a number of our track and field athletes who competed at the Nationals, and so that is quite the achievement to qualify. Nowadays, results are published online, so you actually have to qualify. Back in the day, it was a lot easier to get into the national meet, whereas now you have to have a very legitimate mark to get there. So it is much more of an achievement now than ever, and it's very impressive because they do compete against athletes from all across the country. And we had some amazing performances. There were some school records that got set, so just wanted to acknowledge all of those athletes as well, and their hard work to compete throughout that very long season. And then also I had to give a shout out. I was fortunate to attend the Morocco Science and Technology Fair, and there were just so many amazing scientists there who had so many great experiments, and they worked really hard, and it was just a wonderful event. So I wanted to give them all a shout out as well.
Thank you.
Also had a student finish second in the nation in Model UN this past week, too. So we've got some talented kids across the board who work really hard, both academically and athletically and in all their pursuits. I'm just constantly impressed with our students here in the district.
Excellent.
And I do have a few more remarks. Sorry, apologies. But actually, they're not entirely all mine. So I did have a special education leadership update on the agenda. In fact, there were special education director interviews right up to this meeting. There was we received a strong pool, and a team was put together. And Dr. Ellen Emma has been serving as the acting special education director. She's done a tremendous job, and I don't know how she's even upright day after day. Truly, just a huge contribution. So I did think it was important as we kind of set up and we've had the interviews, if she could just talk a little bit about kind of what's kind of been going on, and maybe if there's any kind of comments on just the projected kind of timeline for the director's position, if we get to a place where there are finalists.
Sure. So it's been a busy place in special ed. We have some great things going on. We are currently piloting some special education coaches. We know it's always a mission of ours to give that teacher leadership opportunities to step up and take on the leadership without having to leave the classroom or their current positions. So Lori and I are working with a small team, and we're piloting this year. It will be out very soon. And their main focus will be to support pre-professional staff, special education teachers, have a lot of questions, and doing PD with them. but also supporting veteran people if they need help with that, and gen ed teachers. So we're hoping to kind of grow this. So that's one thing we've been working on. Another focus area has been a lot of professional development on eligibility. We sent a large team, almost all of our supervisors and our school psychs, out to a conference, a virtual conference, for training on this, and then we'll be working also in district, so that's another big area. We are also working on our SST process and our DCAP, so we will be revamping that. Lori's been working with it, all the principals are involved, the supervisors, so it'll take a little while to kind of work through that with that large group of people, but really important work that we're doing.
Can you specify what those are?
Oh, I'm so sorry.
It's okay. It's our
Yes,
world.
the acronyms
It's our-
once
yeah,
again.
that's what we do.
So we have the student support team, and it's called a little different thing at each level in our district, but what the focus is when we may see students that are struggling in some area, a team gets together to talk about what supports can be put in place, how to gather data, how to monitor that, and then what the next steps are. And then the DCAP is the District Curriculum Accommodation Plan, and that is for all students and any student, and the intention around that is ways to just keep trying strategies and making accommodations so that we can parse out what a student might need help with and what's most successful with them. So we actually have a consultant also working with us on that piece, which is great. Also, we have the new IEP coming to a theater near you very soon. So we've had a lot of professional development for all of our special education staff, both on the level of what are the new pieces around the IEP, and then also on the logistics with Aspen. The good news is that Aspen was one of the forerunner student data systems that already had this in place. So some districts are already using it and that use Aspen. So that's been great because they've kind of troubleshot some of the things that come up with the new IEP. We also have a team of special educators and a couple of gen ed teachers and an EL person on, which is awesome. And they will be kind of the trainers for everyone as we go through the summer and into the fall of rolling out the new IEP. We will also be doing things with parents to try to let them know what the changes are coming so that they're really clear on the IEP process.
Jen, can I ask a quick
Sure,
question?
of course. Sorry. I was
So
just on a
parents
roll.
shouldn't expect if they have IEPs coming up this spring that start for next year, that they will have the new IEP form. That won't happen until fall,
Correct.
winter IEP meetings?
Exactly.
Okay.
And it will, there's a lot of the IEP that's the same.
Yeah.
So that will move right over internally in Aspen. And then the changes will be places that we'll need to focus in the IEP meetings that start next year.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
One of our favorite parts about it is more student voice in the process, which we're really excited about.
In a much more readable form.
We hope so. From our
That's the
perspective,
intent
it appears
anyway.
that way, exactly. We're hoping that it's that way for parents. We are very excited for our middle school program supervisor. She is excited to retire. Maureen Murda is, she will be doing art in her lake house instead of being here with us every day. So she's retiring at the end of the school year. So we have that opening, and we will start, Mr. Lynn and I will start working on interviews very soon for that position. We also have finally the new program supervisor position filled. We're very excited. Her name is Aiden White. She comes with a lot of experience. We will be focusing first predominantly on our elementary LBLD and autism programs. Those will be her first two areas. She will have 6 to 8 transition days before her official start date, which is June 24th. So we will see her as early as, I think it's the week after next, will be the first time that she's with us. So she's met with the supervisors and the 2 principals in those buildings, and then she'll also be starting to get to know the staff and meeting people through the transition days. So we're very excited for that role. And as Dr. Hackett just shared, we just came out of the interviews with, we're excited for a strong pool for the director. And that was kind of phase 2 of the process. Phase 1, we did quick Zooms with different candidates. to see if they would possibly even potentially be a good fit for the district. And then those candidates moved on to a great team, which has great representation from all the different stakeholders in the district. And we just really enjoyed, we had a very thorough interview process for 4 hours, and then we had an hour of debriefing. So we will move on next, hopefully, we're hopeful next week we'll do round 2, which will actually be round 3, but round 2 with the big group, with the candidates that we want to move forward, and then hoping to, within a week or 2 after that, have any candidate recommendations to move forward to Dr. Hackett. So, sorry, I will pause now if anyone has any questions on any of that.
I don't have a question, but that sounded like such a comprehensive HR update. I would love the opportunity to hurl an unexpected question at Ms. Kirby.
Here you go.
I believe Anna Taroni has retired, has she not?
Yes, she
So our
has.
world language director, after many years of service to our students here at the high school and at McCall, has moved on, and I wish her well. Have we yet made an appointment to the director position for world language? And I
In
apologize if
process.
you told me already and I
No,
forgot.
no,
Okay.
and I'm going to let Jen, because they're in the home stretch. is when
That
we
is a
We are in the home
question.
stretch.
Okay. So then, where I was going with that is if that is to be like an internal appointment, just given the responsibilities of the position, there may be less teaching time for that individual, right? Just, they get a certain amount of time just for their duties as a director. And so then I'm thinking about whether we need to backfill with some, fraction of FTEs.
So Anna has left, so we already have something in place for her 2 courses. That's already happening.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
It's the director gap that, between Dennis and James and I, we're doing that piece as we finish the process.
Great, okay, thank you.
Yep.
Great. Good. So a couple more things. So before I give a little bit of, just a brief update on where we are with the literacy study process, I do want to, as I know all of you want to recognize, and it's stuck up on me, this is Mr. Brady's last official school committee meeting, and just want to offer my personal thanks for your time and the work that you've done and your guidance and our conversations, both difficult and a little bit easier sometimes, every once in a while. This is an important role, and it always amazes me that people do actually serve it, given the fact that, there's no money in it. It's for the glory. It's great to have people step up to do it. So I just wanted to thank you for your time here and your guidance with me. You came in just before I got here, and I've appreciated my ability and your willingness to reach out to me and me to you and give me some support off and on when I've not known what I'm doing, which is probably more often than I care to admit. So thank you.
Thank you very much. I've appreciated the opportunity to serve the community, and it's really been an honor.
With that, let's go into the literacy update. I do have a few things just to provide as by way of update. Andrew, if you can go to we'll start on slide 6, thank you. So I wanted to just identify, we've not actually identified who the staff will be, who are working with us as primary researchers from the Collaborative Educational Services. The first one, who's the primary researcher, is Rebecca Mazur. She is a senior research and evaluation specialist. She is a former high school librarian who went back, got a PhD, and exclusively does educational research. She is not a literacy specialist. She has no background or expertise in literacy. She is the one who is working primarily with us directly, along with Catherine Brooks, who is a senior research and evaluation specialist, as well as a survey specialist. I have been, and as well as a couple people in the central office team, as well as actually the chair and the vice chair. The committee had a chance to meet with them. We've been working just on the logistics, how we communicate, what the roles are, just what the dates look like, and just kind of the timeline and scope. We've not identified yet the entire full scope, so some of this will be kind of, it could change as we go through this process and the data become more clear. We wanted to keep it somewhat fluid so that if we see something that takes us in a different direction, we just want to be able to have that flexibility to do that. On the next slide, just by way of update, I have had a chance to meet with all the elementary parent associations. I've also met with the staff, K through 5 staff. That was supposed to happen, if you remember, in, I think, late February. With rain day, I changed it to Tuesday, so it was just last week. Some in person, some were through Zoom. I'm certain that I didn't get to everybody, only in that we had some other things going on, but we had good turnout, some good conversations, good suggestions, some direct feedback. I'm still a little bit scratching my head as to how anybody feels intimidated by saying anything out loud, because they seem to feel very comfortable saying it at me. And so it was helpful, and I appreciated their time, as well as just, really their interest. And there's clearly a really good energy around this process. Some of the comments that have been made around, some of the comments have been similar to the comments we've heard in public session you've heard. Just around why can't we just go into a curriculum, but I think really kind of overwhelmingly people appreciate the opportunity to be able to have a chance to express themselves and have us hear their voice. Those were really kind of overall very positive. And again, we've been meeting internally with the CES research team, just logistical information on meetings. They have begun the preliminary survey design, so they have already started working on that. They have met with our elementary principals as a team to introduce themselves and have a chance to kind of just talk about what the process will look like and field their questions as well. And they actually are beginning to schedule elementary principal interviews. They actually reached out this week. So those will be setting up fairly soon. And if we could just go to the next slide, just a reminder of the kind of the design process. So the research design kind of really is under the direction of the design team. That is going to be, our max, and I'll show you this in a second, but our maximum capacity, or their maximum capacity, is 16 members, up to 16 members for the design team. We've made the commitment to have every school represented with educators, as well as parent representation to the extent that we can get to that number to 16. Whether or not, it'll depend on parent interest at each school, obviously. So we're in the process of trying to, and I'll share a little bit more about that in a second on the next slide. But just as a reminder, there'll be a family survey along with listening sessions. There'll be an educator survey. Both of the surveys will be anonymous. And then there will be in-person and also remote interviews. And then there'll be a review of our existing data. That process has also begun. So the design team composition and role, as I said, is teachers, educators, parents representing the schools. We have up to 16 slots that they feel that they can reasonably manage and have it be a working group that can be productive. We will be, there'll be 6 to 8 late afternoon meetings of this group. Primarily, there'll be virtual Zoom meetings, and those will begin the first week of April. There will, or the intent is to have at least one, if not possibly a couple, in-person meetings by the time the process is completed. The role is to provide feedback to the research team as the research team goes along and brings back to the design team information and updates on progress and actual designs of the survey, the interview design protocols. Their role is to participate in discussions with other members about data findings that are provided to them. And they are also, we're hoping people share their personal perspectives and experiences. I mean, that's really what this is about, so that people can, either their own, or, would anticipate that people would be on this, would also be able to kind of share some of the perspectives and of people that they are close to or aware of or work with. hopefully, we're also would like the building-based educator representatives to be able to keep the faculty at their buildings up to date on how things are going, some report outs as appropriate. And same would be true for the parent representatives through the parent association or whatever mechanism makes sense for that to happen. And then finally, at the end, to provide their reflections for the district in terms of what should be considered as appropriate next steps after the work is completed. So tomorrow, just in terms of the timeline, tomorrow we'll be putting out a notification to educators in all of the elementary schools, an opportunity for them to sign up to be part of the design team. We'll spell out much of what I just said along with some additional information. We will be able to offer some tentative dates for people to look at and determine whether or not those dates are going to work. It's going to be critical that people who commit to this are able to commit to all of the dates that are provided. And then we'll be working also or I'll be working with parent associations officers and as well as school councils and directly with the principals to solicit parent representatives. That will also simultaneously happen between tomorrow and the end of next week. The CES, Collaborative Educational Services, the research team anyway, will be are planning tentatively to be at the school committee meeting, your school committee meeting, your next one on April 9th, to provide first somewhat of a meet and greet so that you can see who they are and ask some questions, but also to provide some progress updates to you directly. And then there will be in-person and online educator and parent sessions the weeks of May 13th and the weeks of the 13th and the 20th. Administration of the educator and parent surveys, the anonymous surveys will be done early May. It'll be early May. They should be completed by late May. So I'll correct that while I can, but it won't show up on there. So early May. And again, those surveys and that work will be informed by the design team, who have had a chance to work with the research team to get some feedback on that. And then we can expect some interim progress updates as appropriate from April through May at both the design team level and potentially at the school committee level, depending on where they are with the process. And again, presentation of findings in June. I continue to try to ask for May, and I continue to get told very politely and professionally no. But they are very sensitive and recognize the sense of urgency with this process, and want this to be both certainly valid, reliable, well done, and get at what we're asking for, which is really to understand from teachers, from educators, as well as from parents, perceptions and concerns, how we're using different resources within the classroom, and really what are the feelings of teachers and parents in terms of those resources, their own experiences, and make sure that we can really map out exactly what it is that we are currently doing and doing in real time within the classroom. So, and all this, as I have said before, is an effort to really try to begin that process of having this conversation with the community, the entire school community, trying to rebuild some trust, which we recognize has been lost or is definitely not where it should be. It's a sincere, genuine effort to do that, and I understand some of the comments that have been made in different settings around CES and Reading Recovery Connection. I can only say what I've said before. I hope that people people can suspend their disbelief and go through the process, respect the process, and take the opportunities that will be provided to give the feedback that many people have already given, and some people haven't really had a chance or an opportunity, or have had an environment where they feel like they can give that feedback. So that is the goal. It's been the goal from the very beginning, and it will continue to be the goal. So I'm happy to answer any questions from the committee if they have any.
Just a thought on the parent representatives. I know we've had a lot of very knowledgeable folks speak at our public comment over the last few meetings, so I'm just hopeful that we can invite some of those folks to be parent representatives. Not that they would be the only parent representatives, but I'm just hopeful we can make sure we're incorporating some of those folk, because I'm sure they would be interested.
I have no question they would be, and duly noted, and that is, that's the intent. I mean, the reality is there are 16 slots, and, we're really trying to make sure that we do get representation from all the schools, and I'm sure there's more than one person who, both with educators as well as parents, who might want to be involved in this. So at some point, we just have to get a team that can work together, but we'll make every effort we can to make sure that we have voices that are on that can contribute to the discussion.
Do you know yet to what, this is my last question, then I have to bolt. Do you know yet to what grade level you're going to be surveying parents? Because
That's still in discussion.
I'm asking because
Yep.
the benefit, the perspective of hindsight for parents of kids who maybe now at McCall.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that's a decision of the design team.
Okay,
Yep.
good enough.
Dr. Hackett, will they have the dates that the design team is meeting? Because I heard you say that.
That will be in the
it's
information we
important-
put out. Yep.
Yeah, it's
Yep.
important for the researchers that people be able to commit to the meetings.
Yes.
So,
Yep.
okay.
Yep.
And just to clarify, no administrators and no school committee members on that design team either.
Nope, there'll be two principals on the design team, and I'll just publicly name. One is Kathy Karen, the principal of the Vincent Owen School, and one is going to be Andrea Phelan. They've agreed to be on that, principal at Ambrose School. And Lori Kirby is the assistant superintendent with the responsibility for elementary education will also be on it.
Yeah.
But not me or anyone
Or
else
any
from the
of
central
us.
office, or none of you.
Right.
Okay. You all set with a Zoom?
Call in.
Okay.
Thank you.
Other questions? Hearing none?
I've had plenty of conversations about this already, so everyone else good? Excellent. All right. So the next item on our agenda is our consent agenda. And on the consent agenda is consideration with gratitude for acceptance of $3,200 grant from the State Treasurer's Office to support the Winchester High School Credit for Life Fair. Consideration with gratitude, lots of gratitude, the acceptance of a WIFI grant totaling $142,820, as well as consideration of approval of minutes from our November 14th, 2023, January 23rd, January 30th, and February 27th, 2024 meetings.
Given the considerable size of the WIFI grants.
I was just going to ask that. Can we pull that out?
Yeah, could I just ask, well, we can pull it out or however you want to handle it, but I would like to have Jen, and I know Maggie's here, so.
Can Maggie come to the table?
Hey, do you want to?
Up there's
right there's
fine.
perfect.
Do we have the list that we can project up on the screen for Maggie? Or no?
Watch the magic happen.
Maggie, do you have the list with you? Or?
I have multiple copies of the list.
Yeah, I have it.
He's got it.
We have it, thank you.
Yeah, so it's on the screen now.
Yeah, I would just say, as always, I appreciate not only all the funding and support that WIFI does, but the collaboration around the process, like as people may ask questions to me, what do you think about this? Like Maggie being open to having a discussion, and then when they get grants, reaching back out to us to share the grants, to make sure they're sustainable and that they are in alignment with what we're doing and we'll be able to carry them forward. So it's just such a truly collaborative process in addition to the amazing amount of funding that they do for us. So just thank you very much.
We're very happy to do it, and I always make a point to tell teachers that when they submit a grant, it's not like a finalized copy, it's definitely something that we're working on, and what they might come to us with an idea is nothing's in concrete. It's something that we work on and grow and build. For example, the first grant, which is the largest one, Ann Ritchie ended up working with one of our grants team members who is a teacher in Lexington at the high school and was able to revamp and revitalize. I got the figure 3 different times before they came to the conclusion. And we are very, very excited that what's happening is biotech used to be a class that students would have to take after they had taken biology, chemistry, and physics. And now they're trying to incorporate those same concepts into 5 different current science classes. So every student who comes
to the high school can be able to do some biotech work here. So it's very innovative, and we're extremely excited about it. We're recruiting teachers as scholars and sending 25 teachers from the high school and middle school will get an opportunity to do professional development through that. We're funding a new mural at Lynch, which all the teachers at Lynch have voted on the artist. And that project obviously is not going to start for a while until there's a building, but we're excited for that. A couple other professional development things, and the cultural squares will be returning to town center, where there were pictures of students' artwork placed on the sidewalk. So WIFI is sponsoring all the student artwork. There will also be additional pieces from other artists in the area. Author Fest is returning. Mark your calendars for the best day of the school year.
It really
will
is.
be October 24th. And then we're also funding some work at the Cultural Center in the high school. Do you guys have any questions on any of those?
What's the teachers as scholars?
So it's a very long-running professional development opportunity that teachers get to learn from Harvard professors, and they're 2 or 3 day courses that they get to take in a large variety of topics.
Maggie or Jen, can you tell us about reimagining the library as a cultural center? Is that the high school, the tech center at the high school?
Yep. You've been working with them more.
Basically, the funds for this came from an anonymous source that would really like to focus things on building community at the high school. And the Cultural Creative Center is a great place for this to happen. So there, Andrea Zabatelli brings in speakers. Last year we had like Mary Madeline came in, who's an artist who talked about like on Earth Day and talked about reusing materials to create art. And so it would be like a continuation of those speaker program project type experiences where we'll be paying for both actually the people coming in and for supplies to be used for things. So we don't have an exact list of who that's going to be yet. This is in very early stages, but we've dedicated the funds to that.
And is that, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, is that for the students or like during the school day, after the school day?
It's mostly during the school day. A lot of it happens during wind block, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah, and they've had people do after-school things too, so that all kids can, it's kind of often a cross between like art and technology, and then, so it's kind of, yeah, an outreach of our tech center, originally supported by the Rotary and WIFI, so.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I would just comment, one, I really appreciate WIFI for all the work that you do, but also just the structure of an organization like WIFI that enables people across town to make contributions, and that money to be directed based on teacher and student grant applications. So it's not concentrated just in one part of town or another. It's really where the need is, and so I appreciate that. I was curious, and this is maybe part for you and it may be part for district leadership, but with the Lynch mural, which I love the idea of creating a new Lynch mural. Wondering if there's any sort of design criteria or what the goals are that they're trying to draw out of it, because the last one was so great. And then the part B is there had been some talk about doing something with the old mural, either taking some of the concept or imagery or something and doing that. And so I'm imagining that's different from this. But as part B, after you tell us about this one, I'd love to know what's happening with that one.
So the new mural will be a collaborative effort that the students will actually work with the artist to come up with the theme of the mural. So that has not been decided or determined yet. The artist is Brett Bacaclan, and he is known for his murals with about kindness and inclusivity, and so
They definitely want the new mural to represent the student body, and the students will actually help create the ideas of what is going to go in the mural. So he will meet with students first before creating what the mural will look like. I do not really have information about
And on the first part too, so that grant is now?
So
What's the
we have
timeframe?
to reserve his time because he will have to put in 1 to 2 weeks. So part of this is like, we will pay a deposit now to reserve his time, but then a lot of the rest will not be happening. He's really not going to do anything until the Lynch building is up and the space is there.
Will current Lynch, will any of the current, is it only for kids who are in the building when the building opens?
Yes.
That's too bad, okay.
It's a little bit of like a small scale of an artist in residence idea to work with the kids.
Yeah.
To the Part B, yes, there will absolutely, we're still in talks about, it will either be actual pieces of the current mural in different parts of the building so that it's spread in different parts, or digital images of the current mural in different parts of the building. So it will still live on.
If there was the opportunity, just as all this rolls out, to include any of the voices of current Lynchies, not just because I have one, but I know particularly the 4th and 5th graders now won't ever go into the new building, and so it means only the very littlest kids will have a role in that. So I don't know that they would want to come back for it, but I think they might, because I remember some older now graduates talking about how proud they were to be involved in the last one, but particularly the kids who are spending a lot of time not, in temporary space and then not getting to be in the building. They just something to consider. But thank you. I'm really appreciative of it.
All right, well, thank you for your time.
Any other
Is there anything
questions?
else?
Motion to approve.
Thanks, Maggie.
Thanks to the Whitby board, please.
Thank you.
Yes, thanks for your time.
Motion to approve the
Get out
consent
while you
agenda.
can.
All right, do it.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Is Mr. Nixon with us yet? Well, it is unanimous of those in the room anyway.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I said I voted for it.
Okay.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you. All right, so next are report, update, and action items. Consideration of approval of the Winchester High School choir trip to Hershey, Pennsylvania.
Okay, the information was previously distributed in your packet. I don't know if anybody is fairly straightforward, and anybody have any questions?
I just want to say thank you to the staff for making it happen. Those trips, I think, are very impactful for our students, and having been on my fair share, they're a lot of work and they take a lot of dedication, so thank you to the staff who's putting it together.
Well, and I was at the Winchester Friends of Music meeting where Mr. Buford came in and talked about it, and he was super excited to be able to be reinstating this trip. It's one they haven't been able to do since COVID, so his enthusiasm was infectious for this, so.
And just the chocolate opportunities.
True.
Motion to approve the trip as presented?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Mr. Nixon? Again, there's a unanimous of those in the room.
Aye.
Oh, we got him.
There we go. Thank you. Yeah, be safe when you're driving, like, you don't have to vote if you're driving.
Sorry, tech delays on my part, apologies.
No worry. Consideration of preschool tuition is the next item.
Okay, just, so in your packet, well, let me step back for a second. With eyes bigger than our stomachs, we had discussed earlier of having kind of a full fees study, a task force group to really look at what we charge for fees. We did not get as far along, and for many reasons with that process as we might have wanted to. However, we do have a couple, well, we have one in particular, which is a preschool tuition, which we wanted to have a conversation with you tonight, partially or mainly because we do need to notify parents of incoming community-based students what the tuition rate will be for next year. We generally This is maybe even a little bit earlier than we normally do it, but we, in my ideal world, we would do it at the same time as we do registration. I had mentioned, I think the last time we had this conversation, I really would love to have some conversation consideration of just locking in 3 years' worth so that people can plan, they know what it is, not just people and parents, but also us as a school department. So what we wanted to show you, along with a couple other revolving accounts that we've talked about, athletics being one as well, and transportation nearing it, we're projecting, we have had operating deficits in the preschool tuition account for several years now. We've been able to cover those through year-end fund balances within the account itself. As you know, we charge off a portion of the preschool program to the revolving account. So this by no means represents the entire budget for the preschool program, but it is a significant portion of it, or it is certainly a funding source that we really need in order to continue to run the quality program that we run, which by all accounts and by all observations, including preschool parades by my office at Parkhurst for a couple of years, it's a fantastic program. So I know that you support it 100% and completely. So what we want to show you is just a few scenarios in terms of moving forward for next year and what it looks like under a scenario where we're not asking for action tonight. I should have said that at the very beginning. This is the first time you're really seeing this in earnest, and we just wanted to show you, but we would like to bring it back to you at the next meeting in April with at some point a recommendation based on your feedback. So if you can, I'm not going to read out loud to you, but you can see the impact of no tuition increase, then 3%, 5%, and 10%. So even in all of those scenarios, we would be projecting an operating deficit with a deficit that we cannot cover. We don't have year-end balances anymore to continue to carry us through these year-over-year deficits. So the challenge is real, and wherever we landed with it, we obviously have to have a conversation about how do we manage those deficits, and of course, we're making some assumptions right now about the staff, required staff, number of kids, needs, all of it. This is really based on if we just took what we're doing this year and just rolled it forward next year. We don't know who the kids are necessarily coming in from, we're getting close, but we have a pretty good idea. But this is not based on actual kids or program. This is just based on moving forward next year with, I think, Andrew, the contractual adjustments made to the positions, correct? Okay. I'm happy to answer any questions. Or if you want to have a conversation about thoughts around it, or, that, again, we would like to, I think we have to do something. We can't continue to operate this way, so.
So I would just observe, looking at this, and maybe ask if this is correct, but for the first 4 columns, we're not changing the revenue. We're only looking at year-over-year cost increases. And so from 22 to 23, it went up about $8,000. From 23 to 24, it went up $20,000. From 24 to 25, we're looking at about $38,000. So it's going up every year and by increasing amounts every year. And that's just, with expenses going up and revenue not going up, the deficits are going up.
Correct. Pretty much held steady from 22 to 23. I don't believe there was any increase at all. And I don't know that we did increase for 24, did we?
Well, this shows no increase on revenue, because the revenue is 333.8.
3,800, 333, 900, so it was $100, right?
Yeah.
And that would be based on number of kids, I would assume, so.
Yeah.
And then 338, 600 for current year.
Yeah, but you're right, so 333.
Which I believe was,
yeah.
I don't remember exactly, but I do believe we did a 3% for this year.
Are there other sources for funding this?
We do receive some grant funding, correct?
Correct, yeah.
As well as operational budget.
262 grant, but it's very small.
Yeah, we don't get much,
No.
unlike all our other grant funds.
On the supply side.
Yeah.
It's, yeah.
Certainly legislation that's been in the works, and hopefully will eventually increase the funding that is available.
That would be helpful, certainly, yeah. So, again, wouldn't be expecting your thoughts and comments, but we just wanted to put this in front of you and just tell you that, we'd like you to think about it. We see this as kind of a multi-year fix. Certainly, we're not going to make all this up in 1 year. And again, these are still projections, but we would like you to think about the possibility of putting in place kind of a multi-year effort and kind of locking it in so that we can plan on, we can do, I think, a better planning moving forward than we've kind of been able to.
Is that a multi-year effort to close the structural gap?
That would be the effort, right? And while also not, it's the program is unique. I mean, certainly, there are reasons why parents would choose to go to a private program. Right? We don't run 6 in the morning to 6 in the afternoon, right? All those things. But what we do know is parents who do participate in this program are very satisfied and pleased with their experience. It is a high quality program. There's all that is true, and it would be difficult for people, I believe, to find a program of this quality, even with the hours that we're operating with licensed certified people and the services we provide for the amount of money we're charging right now. So
it would be helpful, I think, to to spell out. You mentioned the hours are different. I imagine the duration of the year may be different from private, as well as some sense of what private places might pay. But also, if you have any just aggregate information on, what kind of hardship it would be for people. I don't know if that's something you have any way of knowing, but.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good question. I mean, it is a parents register there, and they go through, whether they're interested or not. We're never short of parents who have registered for it, but we can get that information.
I would just hate to raise the price and then a number of people that just can't afford it and other people that can afford it just move into their places.
Agreed.
Maybe there's a
Yep.
scholarship or some way to deal with that.
I think we've gotten at that before, Dr. Hackett, every time we've looked at tuition, at looking at the market rate tuition
Yep.
of preschools around us with similar hours and times. So if we could bring that information back, because if we're still the most affordable on the market, then that might not be as much of a concern.
Right.
And my second question would be, do you think there's any appetite for at least an after-school program for the preschool? And could we approach Kidsborough as we move into the new Lynch about being able to expand the after-school program to at least be able to offer that to parents as we move into the new Lynch, that if they drop their kindergartner and their 3-year-old off for preschool and kindergarten, that they can both stay until the parents get home from work?
There's always the opportunity to approach them.
Okay.
Yep. I mean, I'm not quite sure what you're saying in terms of how
Well, because if you have to pick your,
cost-wise.
I know it would be an
They're-
additional
yeah.
cost for
Right.
them, but it might be,
Right.
it
But not-
might be an enticement to use our program
Right,
if.
right.
And it
if-
could increase our revenue potentially.
Right.
because
Definitely.
Kidsborough is
Right.
getting more than.
Right.
Yeah.
And we do have a usage, our revenue model, or what we charge Kidsborough is based on kids.
Yeah, revenue share.
Yep.
And we can put it back into the building, so that might help us for the preschool program. And for the out years, if we could consider if we can fill the additional preschool classrooms, could we also consider, as we think about this long-term, what the additional preschool classrooms tuition paying at Lynch would be bringing us as well, so that we don't overcorrect either?
Yep. The key will be how many kids we actually run the program for who have identified need.
Right.
Because what's allowed for students who are community students who pay tuition to come in is based on, really, it's capped at however many kids that we have who actually are coming in as part of the preschool program. So part of the conversations we've had previously is whether or not there's some kind of hybrid model that we might be able to run. So if that's your question, we can certainly look at that and have looked at that. We've done some, Mr. Brady's actually provided some information on that. We've had conversations around that, and with the new Lynch, we will have 7 classroom spaces available for preschool. So
currently we're at 2 at 5 at VO and
4 at, correct?
So it's only one more, right?
Right. It is one more, but I think it will equate to being more than one more.
Okay.
If you know what I'm saying.
Do we know if there are other districts that run their own preschool programs apart from the integrated preschool program?
I believe Melrose does. Yeah. And it's set up as a different structure, right? It's like an enterprise account, or is it part of the budget itself?
I believe it's part of the budget itself, but it definitely is, at times it has been able to generate its revenue, as I understand, particularly with the after-school component, because it's all, in Melrose, the after-school is all internal, so it's not a revenue share, it's any revenue from the after-school is revenue for the district, so that's a nice component. Miss Donna Rosso is retiring, but I'm sure she would always be happy to consult or offer any of her advice or wisdom. She's a champion of preschool. She helped get that program going in Melrose, and she would love it to be in other places. So she'll have some time. I'm sure she'd be happy to. She lives in Maine, but she'd be happy to take a phone call or Zoom in. So I would. She's expressed that before. So
okay, thank you.
Offer that, and I would just offer a comment. It shows up as a deficit. And part of that is because it's a question of how much we're putting in our budget when we make our annual budget request.
Correct.
So another way to eliminate the deficit is to say, well, we're just going to put more in our annual budget because we want to invest more in our preschool program. That's certainly an approach I would advocate for, but
what we can also show you is just the percentage, the ratio of amount of the program that we're actually covering here versus covering in the budget, and show that year over year, just to show,
that would be good.
Just to kind of as a metric for what the gap looks like. Okay.
Any other questions on this one? Nope. So, and no actions, just a first reading. So I think because we want to adjourn out of executive session, let me just say our future anticipated agenda items are continuing with the elementary literacy study updates, the FY25 budget and Springtown meeting. Future meeting dates are April 9th and April 25th. Our next item on the agenda then is an executive session.
And the Mystic School
Mystic
update.
School discussion.
Okay, Mystic School.
And school committee reorganization.
Oh, for agenda items?
Yes.
Yes, absolutely. So we'll add those.
Yep.
Those being added right now. Were there any other agenda items? All right. All right, so then the next item is the executive session. So purpose 3, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining, as the chair declares that an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining position of the committee. And purpose 6, to discuss strategy with respect to purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real property, as the chair declares that an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the negotiating position of the committee.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, so we're going to move into executive session and adjourn directly from executive session. So, Wade and Cam, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Everyone else, thank you. Thank you, Seamus.
Thank you.